Every day, this amazing waitress gave food to a quiet boy. What happened next will shock you. Emily wiped the counter with a rag, the familiar smell of frying bacon and brewed coffee enveloping her like a comforting hug. Another morning in the diner, another day where she masked the fraying edges of her own struggles to ensure her customers left with a smile. As she glanced across the room, she noticed him again, the boy with the dark clothes, slumped shoulders, and eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world. Jake. He sat at his usual booth, quietly awaiting his meager meal with a reserved expression that made her chest tighten. Every day, she extended tiny acts of kindness: an extra piece of pie, a large steaming cup of coffee, things she couldn't easily afford but felt compelled to offer. She felt an acute pang for him, mirroring her own worries of making the rent, buying groceries. Would this small boy ever find comfort? Would he ever feel cherished? Deep within, a conflict stirred. She knew what her support meant: a handout could earn contempt. Did she risk reinforcing the cycle of poverty that she desperately sought to escape? As the diner buzzed around her, the waitress felt her heart race. It was an inner battle. She hated the way her mind scolded her, how it questioned her choices, prompting her to justify her generosity. She wanted to stand up and shout, "It's just food. Can't a single mother with struggles show kindness to another?" But in a world dictated by success and appearances, she hesitated. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the weeks passed, Jake became a fixture in her life. Yet, with each day, unease twisted in her stomach at the thought of what others whispered. The townsfolk saw them, the outsider and the waitress, with a spark of something more. Why did it feel wrong to want to reach out? She wanted to absorb his fear, transfer some of her strength like a comforting embrace. But what if her intention turned into pity, a judgment of one struggling soul toward another? The tension escalated, compounding every time she cleared another plate of uneaten food from his booth. Then, one fateful morning, as the warmth of dawn painted the diner in golden hues, disaster struck. With trembling hands, Emily received a frantic call: Jake's apartment had burned down. Anguish washed over her. What could she do? Could she open her heart and her home? The fear of failure seeped in. What if helping him ruined them both? She wanted to be the anchor, the savior, but shadows pooled around her as the implications of her choices threatened to drown her. Now she faced the daunting task of guiding Jake through the chaos of his life while grappling with her own demons. The responsibility settled heavily on her shoulders, leaving her trapped between the desire to stabilize their worlds and the anxiety clutching at her reason, demanding caution over compassion. Doubt reared its head. Could she truly bridge the divide that connected their pain? With the diner still bustling behind her, the impending storm of uncertainties loomed. Would Jake collapse under the weight of expectations she might unintentionally set? Or would he rise to claim his light, guided by the tenderness of their bond and the frantic search for a place where both could belong? As Emily stood at the brink, the room alive with the mundane chatter of plates clinking and coffee brewing, the question echoed in her mind: how far would she go to protect a boy who held so much potential yet feared the world around him? Emily stared out the window of the diner, her mind tumultuous with thoughts of Jake. The morning sunlight illuminated her anxieties, casting deep shadows in her heart. Hesitation gripped her as she considered what it would mean to open her home to him. Could she truly offer him shelter while she teetered on the edge of her own survival? The phone call had sent her reeling, a simple message laden with catastrophic implications. Jake was now without a home, his simple existence turned chaotic in the time it took for flames to consume everything he knew. Her instincts kicked in, but fear was a potent rival, whispering doubts that spiraled through her mind. What if this wasn't just another act of kindness, but a misstep that would forever alter both their lives? As she cleared away dishes, each clink of porcelain against porcelain reminded her of the heaviness settling in her chest. Wouldn't it be easier to leave things as they were? To let someone else step in and take care of him? But Emily could feel deep down that there was something more at stake than mere duty. She believed she could help him, that she should help him. The question was whether she had the fortitude to act on it. The diner's usual rhythm began to distort. The laughter of regulars, the sizzling of bacon, and the clinking of glasses felt like a distracting cacophony. Having Jake around had become a source of unacknowledged strength. His quiet presence reminded her of resilience, yet the thought of him adrift amidst loss now weighed heavily on her like a shroud. With every customer that entered, her resolve wavered. Would she reach out? Would she serve up more than just meals for the day? The conflict twisted in her gut, feeding her insecurities. She pictured Jake's face while he sat alone in his booth, unsure of where to turn next. There was a flicker of a decision deep within her. She couldn't just stand by anymore. After her shift, as she gathered her things, Emily's heart raced. She weighed her options, pondering how she could offer Jake more than what was typically asked of her. She envisioned inviting him over. A brief moment of clarity emerged. Perhaps she could open the door to her home and create a safe space for him, an escape from his despair. But uncertainty loomed on the horizon. What kind of hospitality could she afford when her own circumstances were uncertain? The rattling of dishes accompanied her thoughts, dramatizing her internal strife. Was this an act of reckless kindness, or a chance for both of them to discover a path to healing? The thought of offering him a corner of her life sent ripples through her. What if he didn't want her help? What if her offer became an anchor, pulling them both into fathomless depths instead of lifting them to new heights? Finally, Emily pulled out her phone, fingers hovering over the keypad. She hesitated but then pressed down, crafting a simple message. I heard about the fire. If you need a place to stay, my couch is open. The act felt monumental, both terrifying and liberating. With each passing second, she anticipated regret, but instead, a spark of determination flared within her. This was her moment to embrace the choice that could change everything. She hit send and watched the screen for a moment, then turned away. The decision was made, leaving an unsettling excitement swirling in her chest. What lay ahead would be uncertain and riddled with challenges, yet it felt like a doorway opening into a realm where she could reclaim agency not just for Jake, but for herself as well. As the first reply pinged in, Emily's heart raced with an urgency she hadn't anticipated. Would she be ready to face whatever response awaited her? The moment held more than just a text. It could shift the momentum of their lives, pushing them both toward a shared future filled with possibility, or send them spiraling into deeper uncertainty. Before her phone fell silent, she took a breath, steeling herself. What awaited her on the other side of that message could shape their destinies, and she found herself wondering, in this tumultuous journey of compassion, what would happen if Jake didn't accept her offer? Emily closed her eyes, a wave of emotion washing over her. The text was sent, and her choice was laid bare. Time seemed to stretch as she waited for a reply, each second magnifying her anxiety. Was this the right decision after all? A tight knot formed in her stomach, causing her to replay the moment over and over, her thumb brushing against the screen, her courage just barely outweighing her fears. Thoughts swirled like a tempest in her mind. She questioned whether she could handle the repercussions of her actions. Would he actually accept her offer, or would he recoil from it? The implications felt even larger than her own insecurities, as if they carried the weight of their shared histories and the fragile threads of their connection. The diner was quiet now, the patrons dwindling as the sun dipped below the horizon. She wiped down the counter, the familiar motion sparking a flicker of clarity amidst the swirling confusion. In those mundane tasks, another thought emerged beneath the surface. What if helping Jake became a path for her own healing? Perhaps embracing this uncertainty was a challenge she needed, a way to walk toward her fears instead of retreating into solitude. As the last customer left and a sense of calm fell over the diner, Emily's phone chimed. Her heart quickened, and she nearly dropped the damp rag in her hand. She glanced at the screen. The words had been formed into a response. I don't know if that's a good idea. I appreciate it, though. It was a polite hedge, a half-hearted acceptance, leaving her feeling more vulnerable than before. She took a deep breath, her mind racing. What did I appreciate it truly mean? Was he trying to spare her feelings, or did he genuinely feel unworthy or ashamed? Either way, it was a moment that required her voice. Her assertiveness had to rise above uncertainty, compelling her to nudge him beyond his hesitations. Jake had to realize he deserved support, especially after losing so much. Drawing strength from a sudden surge of determination, she quickly typed back, I understand it's a lot. But we're stronger together, right? You deserve care, and I'd like to help. Then she set the phone down, pacing as she waited for a reply. Each footfall echoed her resolve, while shadowed thoughts seeped in. What if he chose to remain isolated? As much as she felt unwarranted guilt, there was a glimmer of hope that her offer could really serve as a lifeline. Minutes felt like hours, but finally the screen lit up again. I'll think about it. Just like that, her heart sank again, its beat dulling. It felt more like an evasion than a consideration. His emotional walls remained firmly in place, impenetrable. Yet, instead of letting frustration overcome her, Emily recognized a new dimension of her own journey. It unsettled her, this idea that she was inextricably intertwined with his decisions, a discovery that emphasized her own yearning for connection against the backdrop of personal adversity. Was there a path toward mutual healing here that neither of them had explored just yet? Even as self-doubt clung to her thoughts, a realization struck: she could no longer wait passively for him to reach out. This was her opportunity to confront not only their situation but also the part of herself that had felt paralyzed for too long. With a deep breath, she resolved to respond again, to craft a new message that would challenge his limits, pushing him toward an acceptance that he already offered to others. As she planned the words carefully, Emily resolved she wouldn't shy away from ending this back-and-forth reply dance. She would confront him with her truth, rooted in her immense growth. But how would he react? Could she stand firm enough to break down the walls Jake had built around himself, or would this become yet another moment of rejection? Her palms were slightly clammy as she texted, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her. This time was different. She wasn't merely giving him an option, she was laying the groundwork for a connection that could redefine their paths. In her heart, she truly believed they both deserved a second chance, but would he meet her demand for honesty? Emily pressed send, anticipation coiling tightly within her. Whatever unfolded next would be more than a mere answer, it might just map out the contours of their futures. As she peered out into the fading light of day, she grappled with the unpredictability ahead. Would he answer the call for courage, or would he remain ensnared in the shadows of his past? The coffee pot gurgled softly in the background as Emily leaned against the counter, staring out the diner's window. The world outside was cloaked in deepening twilight, shadows stretching across the pavement like echoes of her own doubts. She felt the weight of the decision she'd made, barely a flicker in the vast landscape of her life, yet monumental in its implications. Sitting down at one of the booths, she pulled out her phone yet again, searching for signs of life in her messages. Nothing had changed. She questioned her judgment. Should she have pushed harder? Hadn't she just resolved to confront her hesitations? The self-reflective turmoil was exhausting, swirling within her as she wrestled with a compelling desire to act. How many times had she stuck to the sidelines, silently watching everyone else embark on their journeys? The diner had become her refuge, but now, it felt more like a cage. Determined to construct her next move, Emily recalled her conversation with Jake. His hesitation didn't stem from a lack of appreciation, she recognized it as an echo of his inner turmoil. As she absorbed the realities of his struggle, she realized the most daunting aspect was his fear of failure. She knew that feeling all too well. Striving for perfection had paralyzed her creatively, keeping her from engaging in any meaningful creative endeavors. Instead, she had settled for the safety of her routine and the predictability of her work, all while nurturing a secret longing to take risks. She pulled a pen from her apron pocket and jotted down thoughts that whirred in her head. Art was her unfulfilled dream, a sanctuary she'd abandoned for practicality. How could she expect Jake to grasp his worth if she couldn't communicate her aspirations instead of hiding them? Writing down her dreams felt transformative, as if she momentarily stepped into an alternate reality. With each stroke of the pen, she liberated fragments of herself that she had kept hidden for so long, ideas for paintings, themes that pulsed with emotion. This was who she was beneath the layers of anxiety and doubt. And yet, if she struggled to believe in her own potential, how could she expect anyone else to see it in themselves, including Jake? Emily stopped suddenly, her thoughts crystallizing with clarity. What if, by sharing her vulnerabilities and creative aspirations with Jake, she not only broke down his walls but also pushed herself out of hiding? This realization sparked a fire within her. She felt unmoored and free. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her phone and typed a new message to Jake. I know a little about struggling. I've spent too long hiding the fact that I want to create art. Just putting myself out there feels impossible, but if you're willing to consider my help, I'd like to share mine. Maybe we can help one another. With a decisive tap, she hit send. The rush of vulnerability felt electric, mingling with the anticipation of the potential next step in their journey. The moments ticked away slowly as she waited, her heart racing in tandem with the brewing tension. The phone buzzed unexpectedly. A message. Wow, Emily, Jake replied. I had no idea. That actually means a lot to me. Heat flooded through her as she read those words, confirming that the path she'd chosen to share her truth had resonated. Yet, as quickly as hope blossomed, uncertainty lingered. Would sharing her dreams create a bridge, or leave them both standing on opposing sides of vulnerability? As she mulled over his openness, she felt a familiar knot in her stomach. Each breath became an exploration of that question, how to navigate the intersection of personal growth and shared healing with Jake. Emily's heart raced with purpose. This was more than an opportunity to reach out, it was an invitation for both of them to redefine their narratives. But what lay ahead felt like a precarious tightrope, and each step would require fierce courage. Would they both dare to traverse this new terrain together? The connection they could forge might redefine their lives, but it all hinged on the emotional risks they were both willing to embrace. The diner's door swung open, revealing the crisp evening air, but what awaited behind the threshold felt much more uncertain and far more exhilarating. Emily stared at her phone, absorbing Jake's words like sunlight after a storm. His sincerity ignited a spark of determination within her, yet dread coiled around her heart. There was no turning back now. Bearing her soul had shifted something fundamental. It was a leap into the unknown where both vulnerability and growth awaited. Minutes passed, the smell of roasted coffee filling the air while she fought against the swell of anxiety. What if she failed? The voice of doubt whispered familiar accusations, urging her to retract her invitation. Still, there was no denying the exhilaration pulsing through her veins. This was uncharted territory, a chance to converge their struggles and perhaps create something beautiful from their vulnerabilities. Taking another steadying breath, she retreated to the back of the diner, away from the clattering of plates and the steady hum of conversation. Finding a quiet corner, she allowed herself a moment to gather her thoughts. What did she want to gain from this interaction? If she truly wished to support Jake, wouldn't she need to be candid about her own hesitations? Would sharing her artistic aspirations enable him to take a step forward? As she contemplated these questions, memories flooded her mind. Each painting she'd started but never finished, every canvas that had languished in forgotten corners of her room. She realized that those dreams were embedded in her identity, yet she had buried them in the pursuit of practicality. In that small space behind the diner, determination solidified. If she chose to pursue her passion, she wouldn't just be sparking her creativity, she'd also inspire Jake to embrace his potential. There was an undeniable truth in mutual vulnerability that could carve paths toward growth. Suddenly, the door swung open again, and a regular customer sauntered in, breaking her reverie. Emily forced a smile, engaging in small talk as she served coffee and pie. As she navigated the ebb and flow of the diner's atmosphere, remnants of dread retreated, replaced by an energized focus. She couldn't control how Jake would respond to her message, but she could take charge of her own narrative. She sensed that each customer she served was a reflection of her journey. Each person at the diner held dreams, doubts, and stories to tell, just as she did. Serving them became an act of empathy, a reminder that everyone had something weighing them down. As the shift wore on, she discovered strength in the act of creation itself, not in the canvas, but in connecting with others. Sharing stories, laughter, moments it ignited her. What if she considered each conversation a brushstroke, vivid and intentional? When her shift finally ended and she returned home, a familiar sense of hesitation emerged once more. She set her bag aside, retrieved her journal, and opened it to a blank page. The ink flowed as she penned the emotions that had been ignited earlier. With every thought, a clarity emerged. This was her commitment not just to herself, but to Jake as well. Then her phone buzzed again. Another message from Jake read, "I'd love to chat more about it. Can we meet tomorrow?" A tidal wave of excitement surged through her, contrasted starkly with the anxiety curling around her stomach. Could she truly confront the complex weave of their stories together? As she stared at the screen, a realization dawned. This was an invitation to shape her own destiny, to transform the narrative from fear to connection. With resolve strengthening, she typed back, "Absolutely. I'm excited to talk." A smile spread across her face. Taking risks was an orchestra of emotions, but she finally felt in sync with each note. Still, questions loomed in the corners of her mind. What if their meeting exposed flaws neither of them were ready to face? Determined to confront not only her fears but Jake's as well, she readied herself for the next day's exploration and awakening for both. In the quiet shadows of the night, another thought flickered. Could pledging to confront uncertainty forge a lasting change not just for them, but for their art as well? Her heart raced with anticipation for what lay ahead, but as she closed her journal, she felt the urgency of stepping into the vulnerability that awaited. Would they emerge through the other side transformed, or would the weight of their hidden fears crumble their resolve? Emily woke up to the split-second awareness that this day could reshape everything. The sun streamed through her window with a gentle persistence, an invitation to a new beginning. Today, she would meet Jake, face the tangled threads of their lives, and confront the doubts that had kept her immobilized for too long. As she prepared for her shift at the diner, her mind buzzed with possibilities. What if she was able to articulate her artistic aspirations? What if Jake felt the same surge of courage? With each movement, brewing coffee, arranging pastries, flipping pancakes, she attempted to silence the damning whispers of self-doubt, hoping to replace fear with a steady resolve. Yet, amidst the rhythm of daily tasks, her anxiety reared its head again. What if her sharing derailed their conversation? She deliberately shook off the thought. This was not just about her. Jake had been waiting for someone to understand his struggles, just as she had longed for clarity in her chaotic ambition. The diner buzzed with morning energy, laughter, and conversation weaving around her. As she poured coffee, she tried mentally rehearsing what she might say to Jake. Was she ready to reveal her heart? Would admitting her dreams push him to share his own? Each interaction with her customers felt like a warm-up, a chance to hone her ability to articulate her thoughts. She noticed a young couple at a corner booth, their hands intertwined over breakfast. They mirrored the connection Emily yearned for, a safe space to share fears and ambitions without judgment. Perhaps, through their conversation, they could uncover a shared vulnerability, one that could breathe life into both their aspirations. Her shift dragged on, and she relished the moments of industry but felt a hollowness creeping in the hours leading to her meeting with Jake. When she clocked out, anticipation merged with dread, her heart quickened. She was stepping into an arena of raw honesty, risking the comfort of her familiar fears for the chance of genuine connection. The cafe where they agreed to meet was nestled on the corner of a bustling street, a refuge from the chaos outside. She slipped inside and chose a small table, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup as she awaited his arrival. Moments felt like lifetimes until she finally spotted Jake through the window, looking uncertain yet resolute as he entered. A warmth radiated through her, even as his presence summoned echoes of the anxiety that had accompanied her all day. This was the moment she had been waiting for, a convergence of hopes, unspoken fears, and the possibility of transformation. "Hey," she greeted him, forcing a smile to mask the nerves. He returned the gesture, though she recognized the flicker of worry in his eyes. "Thanks for meeting me," he replied, sliding into the seat across from her. In the following silence, she felt vulnerability swell once more. How could she initiate this dialogue without drowning in her own insecurities? Taking a deep breath, she began to share the dreams she had kept hidden, her years of artistic yearning spilling forth like paint upon a canvas. As she spoke, something within her began to untangle. With each word, the burden of silence lifted. Jake listened attentively, and she could see comprehension breaking through his initial reservation. She sensed that her honesty had sparked something in him, too. As he finally shared his own feelings, the weight of his fears illuminating the room, Emily felt the air spark and resonate with the promise of change. Yet just as the conversation began to flow into deeper realms of understanding, a familiar voice called out from the diner, someone who had always disapproved of Emily's ambitions, reminding her that practicality should trump dreams. A shadow of insecurity unfurled within her, rekindling the battle between her wishes and her fears. Would she allow this external disruption to redefine the strength they were building together? Or could she muster the courage to maintain the pathway they had started to carve, despite the resistance? The moment was suspended, a tipping point with immense potential on either side. The weight of confrontation loomed as she caught Jake's gaze, both a plea and a challenge. Would they continue this journey hand in hand, or would the past derail their newfound connection? In that charged silence, the air buzzed with anticipation for what was about to unfold. Emily's heart raced, her instincts flaring in response to the familiar voice slicing through the atmosphere like a knife. The cafe's sounds faded into a muted murmur, and she forced herself to focus on Jake's eyes, searching for reassurance amidst the chaos swirling in her thoughts. She could feel the tension sparking between them, the unknown aftermath of his reaction becoming an electric current running through her. Would he retreat? Would her fears manifest into reality? With her breath catching in her throat, Emily reminded herself of her purpose here: to share her truth and open a door to possibilities. "I know that voice," Jake finally said, breaking their silence, his brow furrowed as awareness flickered across his face. "Yes," she replied, her tone softer yet firm, encapsulating both recognition and defiance. "But it doesn't have to define me." Fumbling for an anchor to steady her resolve, she pushed her insecurities aside. "I wanted you to know that pursuing art isn't just a whim for me. It's my lifeline. When I create, I feel alive." Empowered by this admission, Emily became acutely aware of her own vulnerability. Yet, she also recognized the strength in her words. She was not merely a waitress serving coffee, she was an artist, a visionary. The impending confrontation served as both challenge and catalyst. Jake responded, his voice laced with admiration, "Emily, I'm glad you're telling me this. It's inspiring to see someone embrace their passion like that." For the first time, the tension that had settled in Emily's stomach began to untwist. As they spoke about their dreams, something liberated, awakening deep within her. Her aspirations no longer felt like fragile whispers but vibrant declarations. "I've always felt trapped by what others expect," Jake admitted, gazing down at the table. "I thought I had to follow a path that didn't belong to me. But you're pushing against that." They exchanged a knowing glance, and Emily saw a shift in Jake's confidence, as if her courage had sparked something deep within him. "What do you really want to do?" she asked gently, nudging him toward his honesty. "I used to want to be a photographer," he confessed, the words hanging between them like a vivid snapshot, a moment captured in time. "But I've let life distract me. I'm afraid I'll never take that risk." In that moment, the dread looming over Emily began to wane like the setting sun, revealing possibilities she had been blind to just moments ago. It was no longer just about her ambition but the entwining of their journeys, a chance to encourage one another to step into uncharted territories. Just as Emily was about to respond, her heart thundered with a sudden realization. She could seize this moment, challenge their fears together, push each other into the unknown. This was transformation, this was just the beginning. But that familiar voice rang out again, sharper this time, reinforcing all the doubts they both had held inside. Why waste time on dreams? Just get a real job. The word sliced through the intimacy between Emily and Jake like a bitter wind, and she felt the heat of indignation rise within her. All the fears she thought she had quelled rushed back to the forefront of her mind. Did it really matter how they felt? Was pursuing their dreams worth the scorn of those who would rather see them conform? She glanced at Jake, seeing the flicker of uncertainty return to his eyes. The moment felt crucial. Would they cling to their aspirations, allowing the outside doubts to shatter their resolve? Realizing she faced not only external challenge but an internal war, Emily felt the intensity of the silence swell. Emotions collided in a maelstrom of ambition, fear, and the need for acceptance. Would their budding connection withstand this external critique? Or would the weight of doubt drown out the dreams they had both just begun to voice? With the air crackling around them, Emily understood it was time for action. But what kind of action would they take, and could they navigate through the storm together? As the tension swirled, she prepared to confront not only the disapproval around them but also the shadows of their own insecurities. Would they forge ahead, or retreat in the face of adversity? The moment shimmered with unspoken potential. The next step loomed large, full of risk and promise. The sharp voice lingering in the air seemed to radiate doubt, wrapping around Emily like a suffocating shroud. She felt the weight of expectations pressing down on her, a familiar yet uncomfortable sensation. Jake's expression mirrored her thoughts, a flicker of conflict playing across his face as he processed the reality of their precarious situation. Emily had come here today to change her narrative, to reclaim her identity as an artist in a world that often discarded dreams as unrealistic. But now, standing at the precipice of her vulnerability with Jake, she realized she wasn't just fighting for herself, she was inadvertently creating a shared battleground for them both. "We can't let that voice dictate our choices," she said, the conviction in her tone steadying her frayed nerves. "What do you want to do, really? You can't let fear hold you back, and neither can I." The challenge hung in the air, pulsating with urgency. Her statement wasn't just a question for Jake, it was a declaration for herself. Behind every word she spoke was a promise to forge ahead, to push the boundaries of her comfort zone. It was time to reject the narrative that had filled her life with insecurity. Jake looked up, his eyes meeting hers with newfound intensity. "I want to capture the world through my lens," he admitted, the words spilling forth with a fervor that hinted at long-suppressed enthusiasm. "But what if I fail? What if my pictures aren't good enough?" She recognized the tenacity of his fears, but she couldn't afford to let that deter them. "Failure is part of the process," she urged. "Every artist faces it. We have to learn from it, not be paralyzed by it." As she spoke, a quiet strength enveloped her. Each challenge they shared cracked open a deeper layer of her conviction. She wasn't just an artist trapped inside a waitress's body, she was a fearless creator capable of exploring uncharted paths. "Let us take a risk together," she suggested, a spark igniting in her heart. "What if we both decided to create something, a photo series combined with my art? We can expose ourselves to criticism, but we might also discover something incredible about ourselves." The corners of Jake's lips began to curl into a tentative smile. Emily held her breath. Was he really considering stepping into the very vulnerability they both feared? He nodded slowly, his hesitation unraveling. That could be amazing. The thrill of possibility surged through her. For the first time, they weren't just two people talking, they were collaborators crafting a future filled with creativity and exploration. But the shadows of doubt could still loom large, and Emily knew they needed a solid plan. "How about we meet once a week to brainstorm ideas and work on our projects?" she proposed, a structuring force within the excitement. "We can hold each other accountable and share our progress. It'll keep us focused on our vision." Jake's face lit up, revealing glimmers of hope that hadn't been there moments before. "I like that idea," he said, the gravity of their situation lifting slightly. Yet, glancing down, he hesitated again. "But what about what others think?" "My friends forget them," Emily interrupted, her resolve unyielding. "This is about us, our dreams. We owe it to ourselves to give this a shot." As their conversation continued, Emily wielded her passion like armor, encasing herself and Jake within a shield of mutual determination. They were at a pivotal moment, and the thrill of shared ambitions lightened the heaviness that had previously weighed them down, but just as she felt they were on the cusp of a breakthrough, the bitter voice from before echoed in Emily's mind again, a haunting reminder. How could they silence the naysayers for good? She glanced at Jake, whose eyes were alight with possibilities, and yet there lingered a shadow of doubt. The room around them dimmed, mirroring her concerns. Could they withstand the inevitable scrutiny ahead, or would external voices drown out the developing song of their aspirations? With the resolve to solidify their plans and dreams, Emily felt propelled forward. But the real test lay ahead, a crucial moment looming just out of view. Would they retreat into comfortable silence, or step boldly into their creative journey, allowing their true selves to emerge amidst the clamor of dissent? As a new reality beckoned, she sensed this was just the beginning and they still had to face the challenges that lived beyond their own minds. In the days that followed their conversation, Emily felt an electric tension coursing through her, a blend of excitement and apprehension. Each week loomed ahead like a blank canvas, filled with potential yet also uncertainty. She established a routine, setting aside time after her shifts at the diner to sketch ideas and outline concepts for their collaborative project. It was as if she were a coiled spring, ready to unleash her energy and talent into something meaningful and transformative. However, as the week progressed, the gnawing doubt remained. Emily's thoughts spiraled inward. What if her passion wasn't enough? What if her artistic vision crumbled under the weight of reality? The voice of self-doubt became an unwelcome constant, whispering in her ear during quiet moments, casting shadows on her burgeoning creativity. On the night they were scheduled to meet, Emily prepared herself both mentally and emotionally, donning a favorite old sweater that made her feel somewhat invulnerable. She had spent the afternoon revisiting pieces of art that had once stirred her spirit, hoping to find inspiration. As she arrived at their designated cafe, she could feel an energy bubbling beneath her skin, urging her to take those first steps toward vulnerability. Jake was already seated at their usual corner table, his camera resting beside him, a subtle reminder of the journey they had agreed to undertake. His face was lit by the soft cafe glow, yet a hesitation clung to him like the steam rising from his cup. "Hey," he greeted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'd been thinking about that idea we had. I don't know if I'm ready." Emily's heart sank. The flicker of doubt in his eyes mirrored her own. "What's changed since we talked? You were so enthusiastic," she probed gently, her own resolve faltering as she questioned the partnership they were building. Jake took a deep breath. What if my photos aren't good enough? Or what if my perspective is too different from yours? I don't want to mess this up for you." Her instinct kicked in, she wasn't about to let fear take root in their budding project. "Jake, this is exactly why we're doing this, the fear, the uncertainty. It's part of the process," she insisted, her tone firmer than her heart felt. "This project won't work unless we both commit to being vulnerable. We can't improve if we don't dive into this head first." He nodded, but the shadow of doubt still lurked in the corners of his expression. Emily realized their partnership hinged on both of them confronting their insecurities, not just hers. "What if we started small? Just bring a couple of your photos next week, we can review them together," she suggested, trying to weave a path for them to begin navigating their fears. Jake offered a tentative smile, but his eyes still revealed a reservoir of uncertainty. At that moment, a realization struck Emily: confronting their fears needed more than just action, it required consistent support. "Let us create a schedule where we hold each other accountable. We can set specific goals," she proposed, the thought sparking in her mind. "Like mini deadlines?" he inquired, curiosity breaking through the trepidation. Exactly. If we have something to work towards, it might help ease the pressure, she explained, envisioning a structure they could cling to. With a renewed sense of purpose, they mapped out their plans for the following month, embedding check-ins and review sessions between their busy schedules. When they finally parted ways, Emily felt a high-strung anticipation, a sense that they had taken a small yet important step towards sculpting their dreams into reality, but the raw nerves lingered, like a thread pulled taut. As Emily walked home, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle lay just ahead. She still had to confront the most daunting question of all: what would their vulnerability reveal about themselves? The following week loomed ominously in the distance, each day a reminder that they had only just begun. How much would they uncover about each other and themselves in the process? And would their shared aspirations be enough to silence the whispers of doubt that threatened to derail them? As she tucked herself into bed that night, Emily committed to the journey ahead. But with heightening stakes, she couldn't help but wonder, would they emerge from this endeavor forever changed or suffocated by the fears they sought to conquer? The following weeks shaped Emily and Jake in ways neither had anticipated. A steady rhythm had formed, punctuated by regular meetings where they shared ideas, critiqued each other's work, and offered encouragement, a haven they built together. Slowly, the shadows of doubt that had hovered over them began to dissipate, replaced by mutual respect and nascent creativity. One evening, after a particularly productive session, Emily looked across the cafe table at Jake, who had become both a confidant and a collaborator. Their project, a photo series intertwined with Emily's art, was evolving into something much deeper than either had initially imagined. Jake had brought his latest photos, and Emily had embedded fragments of her emotions into the mixed media pieces she crafted alongside them. "Look at how your experience adds a layer," Jake said, eyes sparkling with excitement as he studied her work. "Your pieces make my photographs come alive." Emily felt a flush of pride and realized just how far they had both come. There was no longer a fear of exposure, they had harnessed the energy of vulnerability as a conduit for creativity. It wasn't just a project, it was a living dialogue, shaped by their intertwined narratives of pain and aspiration. Yet, this progress wasn't without its challenges. The voice that threatened to belittle their dreams still lingered in the periphery, echoes of skepticism from their community slushed through their minds. Each time Emily felt her confidence waver, she reminded herself of the newfound synergy she had found with Jake. In those moments of doubt, they leaned on one another, pushing through obstacles, sharpening their resolve. On a particularly heavy day, Jake's expression revealed his weariness, and she felt compelled to offer words of encouragement. "You know, rejection is just part of the process," she reassured him gently. "Each photo you take adds value, the failures are just part of the journey." Seeing the tension in his face eased as he absorbed her words, Emily recognized the emotional maturity they were both developing. It was now clearer than ever, they weren't just creating art, they were reshaping who they were as individuals. Finally, the day for their public reveal arrived. An exhibition had been organized at the local community center, showcasing the work of emerging artists. They stood side by side, hearts racing, as their pieces adorned the walls. The atmosphere thrummed with a palpable energy, and they both fidgeted nervously, awaiting the reactions to their collaboration. Emily had spent sleepless nights uneasy about presenting her art publicly. Yet as she scanned the crowd, she realized she was no longer encased in fear. She felt grounded, confident in the beauty of her journey. When someone approached their corner, the project they had poured their souls into, their initial reactions of confusion gave way to admiration. "This is powerful," an onlooker said, taking time to study Jake's photograph juxtaposed against Emily's evocative brushstrokes. "You both have created something that speaks to the struggle between hardship and hope." As the evening wore on, more people mingled around their work, and the conversations lifted Emily's spirit. Later, as the event concluded, an art critic approached them, his expression earnest. "You've taken a bold leap here," he acknowledged. "Your work exhibits a rare authenticity. I'd like to feature your collaboration in my upcoming column." Unexpected elation washed over Emily, but this time it wasn't just about validation. This moment symbolized the resolution of her internal struggle. The fear that had tied her down was finally unshackled. "Can you believe it?" She turned to Jake, whose eyes mirrored the astonished wonder she felt. "I always knew we could do this," he replied, his confidence palpable, a testament to how far they had both come. Despite the applause and praise, it was their bond that had solidified in truth and strength. Each had provided the other's foundation to thrive. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, the last remnants of self-doubt drifted away. Emily felt the realization resonate within her. Resilience doesn't just emerge from success but from the courage to stand firm amid uncertainty. With the sound of laughter echoing in the background and hope lighting their path ahead, they embraced the future, open to the possibilities it promised. They had not only conquered the shadows of self-doubt but had also transformed their narratives into something authentically beautiful, a testament to personal growth and creative rebirth. The diner's morning bustle echoed as Emily prepared to shift into her new role, an artist who had finally embraced her voice. They had reached an obstacle, and they had surged beyond it. It was more than just an accomplishment, it was a celebration of the triumph of vulnerability, a promise of what would come next. Transformation and acknowledgement of dreams had only just begun. Now is the time for you to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to witness the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire and ignite personal growth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. That minute act makes a world of difference. Comment below your reactions and theories about this ending. We want to hear from you. And don't delay, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for authentic stories of personal overcoming.